Hi, I'm Dr. Randall Pinkett, and I'm pleased to introduce you to some great ideas about health. So what is health? It's not merely the absence of disease. The World Health Organization defines health as the state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So to assess health, we must consider social conditions and life circumstances as an equal part of the diagnosis. With this holistic approach, it's possible to pinpoint exactly where and how to start building healthy communities and healthy people. This film is about a man who has done that his entire life. In a society where people of color have been historically disenfranchised, this man, along with many other African Americans, struggled against great odds to build a responsive and inclusive health system. This man is Dr. Gerald Dees. With every step he takes, Dr. Dees finds ways to treat a community's health through creative, scientific, and courageous ideas.
You can change people just by your ideas and how you're thinking. Yeah. First you gotta walk like somebody, then you gotta talk like somebody, then you gotta act like somebody going somewhere. You gotta smile like somebody, act like a child of somebody, and let everybody know that you care. Even a mouse became somebody. He has frightened everybody because he refused to think that he was small. He decided in his mind that he was one of a kind, and from that day, he's been 10 feet tall. And even a cat became somebody. She's been the queen to everybody because she knows that she has 9 lives. She's not afraid of the highest places. She can deal with all the races because she don't take anybody's job. First you gotta walk like somebody, then you gotta talk like somebody, then you gotta act like somebody going somewhere. You gotta smile like somebody, act like a child of somebody, and let everybody know that you care. This is Dr. Dees on House Calls.
But Dr. Dees used to do these public service announcements or parts of some news show here in New York. And I don't even remember the show anymore, but I definitely remember the inspiration of an African-American man as a doctor.
His are the shoes that you know you want to, in fact, walk in.
We knew just from looking at him and looking at the age that he was, what he had gone through to become a doctor.
He didn't have million-dollar grants. He didn't have a large institution supporting him. It was just this desire that this ain't right, and I have to fix it.
The greatest thing is when somebody doesn't expect something from you and you do it.
He gave us a speech that was framing his long career of public service and health within this context of community public service. That was one of my big inspirations to come to med school.
When you have barriers, you have to learn how to get around barriers.
He is a poet, a humanitarian, and a physician of the highest caliber.
It's certainly the kind of legacy that speaks for patient advocacy and clinical excellence and community activism that every physician should try to emulate.
Even though he's not a dentist, his impact has been so great that it expanded all the way into the dental realm.
Dr. Dees is an example of someone who can touch so many other aspects of a community.
Well, Dr. Dees is at this point legendary.
I even remember not necessarily believing that he was actually a real physician at the time, but the image of an African-American man, that was enough of an inspiration that it definitely added to my own wants and dreams of wanting to be a doctor.
My friend, my brother, Dr. Gerald Dees.
I am what time, circumstance, and history have made of me, certainly, but I am also much more than that. So are we all. James Baldwin.
What my positive ideas can do for you is rub off. I came up in the hood in Brooklyn, Halsey Street, Bed-Stuy section of Brooklyn. and Brooklyn became my heritage. You learn the street. You really learn the street. You knew how to move. You knew if somebody was a gang member. I had to walk through 3 territories to get to school. My father used to say, a good run is better than a bad stand. So I ran. I wasn't living a charmed life from the standpoint of being goody-good. I had to do all the things to survive. I went to Brooklyn College, and in those days it was very difficult getting into a city college. Just a few blacks in biology major and chemistry. And in the midst of my master's, the Korean War was going strong at that time, and I was drafted out of the class. They said, "You are in the Army now." Got out of the Army. I went back and finished my master's in biochemistry. Well, you know, they're giving scholarships out of the University of Michigan for public health. Michigan in that time was very discriminating too. After I finished that master's, though, to get a job was difficult in big industry as an industrial hygienist. Dr. Warren Cook had to write a letter, a recommendation letter, stating in it, and this is real, that I get along with white people. I can get along with white people, you know. The only way I could be independent is to be independent with a degree that I could use myself, and that was an MD degree. Now, nobody had ever told me to be a doctor. I was never thought of being a doctor per se. I never grew up. My father said, "You're going to be a doctor." They were wondering how much school I was going to. When are you going to start working? You know? So I had my plans, and I had to do what I had to do. When I got into medical school, it's only 2 blacks, myself and another young man. One thing of a disadvantage I found in medical school being black was that you couldn't cut a class. Davis, white guy, he was always cutting class. Nobody missed him, but these had to be there. And that started my journey in medicine.
We need more black doctors.
When I talk about young African-American people coming into medicine, it is important.
It's very important to inspire people of color to go into medicine.
We need our minority students to be entering allied health as active professionals.
I think we need to be out there in force.
Let us arm people who will be more willing to deliver quality care within these communities.
We need them as physician assistants, nurse practitioners, lab techs, physical therapists.
Because when you give, you get respect. It was people off my block. I'm talking about black men who I saw going to work every day. They were fathers and things like that, and it was strong men and dedicated and things like this. These were the kind of people that inspired me. Like the one that got me into medical school was a Sunday school teacher of mine who was a doctor, and he inspired me to be a doctor. First of all, when I was your age, I didn't have the opportunity that you have today. You just got it on your own, you know, you went out and did it.
The world does not look at a young person of color and automatically think, doctor.
So I went to college at night for a whole year, taking all my subjects and everything and working at the same time.
When I tell the girls that I'm a doctor and they're like, "You're a doctor, really?"
Well, I said, I'm a doctor. They said, what do you mean doctor? I said, I went to medical school. And they couldn't believe that I went to medical school. The youngsters today have to have role models, strong role models, who are not just on the basketball court or the football field or the baseball thing. They have to live among role models. They couldn't believe that I made a transition to college, working at night, going to school at night, working all this kind of stuff, and then he finally made it.
What it meant to us here in Hollis to have a Dr. D's around the corner, a neighborhood person who would ring your bell, who would make a home visit, who would check on you. It gave a human face to African American genius.
It's important for me to go back into the community to tell them that I was there. I went to your schools. I went to the stores. I grew up in this community. I'm a part of this community, and I did it.
The question now is, okay, well, what are you going to do when you get there?
Everything is everything. Everything is.
I've been very immersed in the concept of I am my brother's keeper.
Coming up through the system, you always feel the burden to you have to represent your race. I mean, whether you want to or not.
This is my responsibility. We have to just sort of carry this burden on our shoulders in order to progress and continue the excellence of others that came before us and, elevate that.
From the beginning, my practice extending across the app.
But a large part of our job is letting our children see we're doctors, we're nurses, we're researchers. You can do this too. This creates a pipeline. It shows our children that they can get involved, that they can do this.
We need people who are going through the process, who aren't even looking at it as a sacrifice, but look at it as a responsibility to go back to within these communities to help.
This is a large pool of talent that's going untapped.
And that's why we need to do it. Getting them to think that they can, so that, the rest of the world can say, oh, okay, we do have a lot of people of color in medicine.
When you have people of color going into medicine, and you have them going in with the kinds of role models that Dr. Deese is a great example of, you end up having people going into the community that are thinking about the people, the community, and are able to take medicine to that next level, to actually make their community a better community.
You have to have peripheral vision. Peripheral vision is seeing who's left behind.
Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
In the original Mother Goose nursery rhyme book in 1896, the only poem dealing with black folks was called 10 Little Niggers. 10 little nigger boys went out to dine. One choked on himself, and then there were 9.
If you're black, there's the assumption that, we need to be careful how we give narcotics to black people because somehow they're going to become addicts or they may be seeking drugs.
9 little nigger boys sat up late. One overslept, and then there were 8.
There's a standard that's clearly double. There's a standard that's clearly different.
8 little nigger boys traveling in Devon, one said he would stay there, and then there were 7. 7 little nigger boys chopping up sticks, one chopped himself in half. And then there were 6.
All aboard, everybody.
The experiment was actually being conducted to find out what happened to untreated syphilis. That experiment went on for 40 years, even after penicillin was available, and an injection of penicillin would have been able to have cured them. There was this conversation in terms of, shall we treat them now? We have enough information. And the decision was no, we will not treat them with the penicillin, but we will proceed. African Americans who had been suspicious, felt that there was something wrong, but believed in the government. This was federal, like we believed in banks. This is federal. And that's why I have a deep, cultural understanding of why we don't trust doctors.
The Tuskegee affair wore on folks' minds because even when I was at Kings County Hospital, people said they didn't want to go to the hospital because that's where you die at. as such.
I had an aunt in Mississippi, at least one that I know of, who was sterilized. She had acute appendicitis, and she was sterilized. It was called emptied up. Her body looked like a series of zippers, just mutilated her body. Now, the fear about this sterilization was not unique to my grandmother's family. There were other women who had been treated like that. And the issue was, do you now go to a doctor or do you not go to a doctor?
If someone doesn't feel that, the system is going to, in fact, try to do the best by them, you find patients that are coming in to the hospitals and coming into doctor's office and with a certain level of reluctance.
Now people get ready for that train.
I wrote a book called 10 Little Niggers based upon the original Mother Goose nursery rhyme. When you open my book up, I recite that part, and I open up part 2 for survival. One little black boy was loved and he grew, he shared with another, and then there were 2. 2 little black boys learned to agree. They asked the help of another, and then there were 3.
You walk into a hospital like Kings County Hospital, 95% of the people that lay in that hospital are black or Hispanic. And it makes a difference if you look up and there is someone that you sort of look and you see the face and you say, wow, this is someone that I can relate to.
3 little black boys wanted to do even more. They lifted one who had fallen, and then there was 4. 4 little black boys learned how to survive. They joined hands with another, and then there were 5.
I think that, having folks there that understand some of your own issues, someone that is more culturally sensitive. There is such a thing as cultural differences.
And 5 young black men built with mortar and bricks. They encouraged another builder, and then there was 6. And 6 black brothers knew hell from heaven. They turned a brother around, and then there was 7.
87 to 90% of our population on a daily basis is that of color. So I'm walking into their lives representing the impossible. Like, I'm walking into their lives, and I still have patients to this day that say, "You're my doctor."
And 7 black students learned never to be late. A serious brother followed them, and then there were 8.
The experience that I have all the time is, wow, you're really my doctor?
And 8 black men became strong with time. They linked arms with another, and then there were 9. And 9 little black boys became strong men. They looked for a leader, and then there were 10.
Wow, thank you for being my doctor.
And 10 little black boys are only a few. To become strong men will be up to you.
The African American population has endured more than 400 years of unequal treatment, both within and outside of the traditional healthcare system. Even after the official end of slavery in this country, a variety of issues still remained, such as racial discrimination throughout the health industry, segregation in medical facilities, the denial of professional and educational opportunities, and blatant community neglect. This has resulted in chronically high rates of death, illness, and other health-related issues that continue to face the African American community. Now, though adamantly denied by segments of the American population, the legacy of racism continues as a number of health disparities still pervade. The level of health amongst people of color is dramatically lower than that of the white majority, and there is still gross underrepresentation of African Americans among health professionals throughout this country.
This nation is built upon the concept of a democracy, which, if it is working well, everybody has the same chance.
Them that's got shall have, them that's not shall lose.
You don't get at the gate and you only have one leg, And that's what has happened with many black, even in medicine. They say, oh, you can get into medicine, but you only have one leg now. You didn't get a good primary education, a good college education. Come on into medicine, see what you can do here. Well, you can't even get through the front door with that kind of concept.
You see black children disproportionately being placed in tracks that don't lead to college. They kind of lead to nowhere.
Unless our course of study changes considerably in the middle school in terms of the science and mathematics, it'll be very difficult for them to be able to become a doctor, because it's almost too late when you get to secondary school if you don't have the labs, if you don't have the science background to catch up, and also if you don't have the model of a Dr. Dees.
God bless the child, that's not his own. that's got his own.
Coming to the Board of Education to give them a plan to give children health information and be able to take it home to their parents. It's called Dr. Do It, a young lady in a grade school named it Dr. Do It. And this whole program is based upon, in school, the children to become young doctors. And this is what we're missing, especially in the African American community. We have to start these in grade school that you want to become a Dr. Do It. You want to become a doctor. And the only way you can do that is to introduce them early in life to the rigors of science, the rigors of study, and all those kind of things. Because if you don't do it at that point, you can forget high school. I had a lot of difficulty getting into the Board of Education to even present this kind of plan. You would think they would be open-armed to have somebody in the city who's born in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, went to grammar school, PS 70, PS 26, Boys High School, Brooklyn College, Downstate Medical College, Kings County Hospital, and here I am, still out here in the cold trying to get into this building today. It's very difficult to get through the maze trying to get things done for children. And so therefore, I'm hoping that the person that I meet today will at least consider the program.
Whether they finish high school or not, we know that as a society, that a lot of them have tuned out. We know that as a society, that by the time they're in junior high school and high school, their paths and their decisions or the possibilities for their life in their mind has slimmed to maybe 3 or 4 different opportunities, some good and some bad.
When we accept 12th graders reading at the 10th grade level, we have a problem. When we accept the math and the science levels, that are 2 grades below their white counterparts, we have a problem.
By the time all of that's happened, to then say to them, hey, well, you know what, you could have a career in science, you could be a doctor, is almost an insult to their intelligence. Because now what we're telling them is, I know it hasn't worked for 8 years, but if you turn it around today, have faith in me that you can have a wonderful career. And that's actually true, but it still is counterintuitive.
In 2005, of the 17,000 students matriculated into medical schools across the country, about 1,100 are African American, about 1,100. It's roughly 5.5%, 6%. If you stop and look at the number of black males, the number is a little bit less than 2%. We're talking about numbers that are that low.
I remember him telling me that he was in a class of 2. He was one of only 2. The fact is, you might be, in terms of males, you might be one of only what, how many now? It can't be more than, I know it's not more than 10, and I'd venture to say it's not more than 6.
Yeah, about that.
So now you're talking 40 years, and it's the difference between 2 and 6. That's not tremendous movement.
Before Dr. Dees came to med school, he told me that he did a tour of duty in Korea and he did 2 masters before he got into med school, which lives out that old adage that for a black man to achieve certain positions, you have to be twice as good as your white counterpart. And so I think in many ways things have gotten easier for us thanks to people directly like Dr. Dees.
Having to live as a black person in America from day one has been infinitely more challenging and time-consuming, most of it wasteful. You just imagine all the wasted time in my life that you have to spend just trying to be able to be viewed like everybody else.
We're still dying at a much higher rate for prostate cancer, maybe 4 or 5 times higher than our white counterparts. Colon cancer, the number is about the same. The incidence of diabetes is much higher in our communities, and yes, we can relate to things having to do with nutritional issues, and there may be some genetic factors, but certainly there are issues that we can begin to address as a community of healthcare workers to see how we impact these numbers and make the numbers better.
If we don't have the whole health system to come involved in prevention, then we're going to be dealing with all these diseases the rest of our days.
The leading cause of death now for African Americans in the age group of 34 to 45 is HIV/AIDS. Unbelievable. And it's just like one think about the leading cause of death for young men, 15 through 24, and someone will extrapolate a little bit and go as high as 15 to 30, is in fact homicide. It's unbelievable.
So we need a society of health where we can start a child off early to understand prevention.
Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Shirley Chisholm.
You see crime in the street, or young people being shot by other young people, not by cops, young people. We had a program here called DAM, Doctors Against Murder.
Doctors Against Murder is an organization that was an attempt to take a proactive approach to the violence that we saw in the emergency room. So we enlisted a whole bunch of help. Gerald D's at the top of the list.
We as doctors and interns and nurses and other people would go out and hit the high schools.
We start talking to young people about how we begin to develop strategies to avoid the kinds of confrontations that will lead into the violence that we saw in the emergency department.
And we showed very vivid pictures of an emergency room when somebody was brought in shot, a young person.
And the reality is slides of 15-year-olds with stab wounds and gunshot wounds and with toe tags.
Kids would turn away from the film, they couldn't stand to see it.
We made it our business to get out there in the community, and over the last 10 years or so, we have been all over the place. We've been to detention centers. I had a stint at Rikers Islands also, and we sat down with lots of these young men, and a number of them will admit that no one, in fact, had taken initiative to come out and talk to them. And a couple of them, in fact, will say, if we had people talking to us like this, maybe we wouldn't be in the trouble that we were in.
Damn, Doctors Against Murder.
Our role has to be one of activism, and it's not going to happen within the hospital confines. It needs to be out there in the community.
He is such an unusual physician. He made house calls, he visited people, so that he would know what the social and economic determinants were of their diseases.
So I got all my teaching from right on back to Hippocrates, where we have to take that oath, and he says, even in that oath, it says when you go into someone's home, and how you should act. And doctors just don't go anybody's home. So a lot of that time, when they take the Hippocratic oath, they're breaking one rule right there. They just don't make house calls anymore,
I'm a needle in a haystack. I'm a complex soul. If you get with me, baby, I'm gonna do it.
Well, he's a most wonderful man. Besides being a doctor, he's the greatest. Yeah. That's all I can say. He was always here for me, and he was always here for everyone else that I ever heard of that knew him.
Pressure is like a young pony.
Well, one thing I can say, Dr. D, you've been there for me so many years to help me, and you always knew that I can call you when I can't get to the doctor.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, you're going to have many more years. And I'm just so glad one thing, you might be riding in a chair, but your brain is riding high.
Dr. Dees is innovative. He's creative. He will speak to the community in a language that the community understands. He'll talk about strokes, he'll talk about cardiovascular disease, he'll talk about AIDS. And he won't talk at you. He won't throw a lot of medical jargon at you and tell you about the latest statistics. But what he'll do is he'll create a scenario, he'll create a play, he'll create a poem, and that will engage the listeners, the community, to say, oh, he's talking about me.
I really feel that, Aaron. arts is the essence of a community. I mean, when you want to raise the spirit of people, the arts do it. My plays have been here because we don't show anything negative in this theater. Everything is uplifting.
He becomes the house doctor to all of us. If you're ailing, to keep them well so they can work, he's always around. He is that giving, that feeling about these people, because most of them don't have health care.
You talk to Dr. Deese and you feel, you feel okay. He respects me, he knows me, and you're more likely to listen.
I believe that if you give people a thorough understanding of what confronts them and the basic causes that produce it, they'll create their own program. And when people create a program, you get action. Malcolm X.
It's important in any profession, whether it's medicine or what have you, is to be an advocate. That is, for them to look at you totally as a human being, and that has more impact than all the words you can say. It's what you do. And Arthur Ashe broke down so many barriers in sports, of course, but mostly he was a civil rights leader himself in what he did in South Africa and all the other places around the world.
It's a continuous problem-solving process of solving the ones that are here now and trying to head off the ones that pop up tomorrow.
Playing tennis and not playing tennis because they wouldn't allow blacks to play tennis. He was an advocate for, of course, that equality, which led on to forming the Arthur Ashe Urban Health Institute at Downstate Medical Center before he died.
Our basic goal is to raise awareness, and with that, to inspire people to act. Community health empowerment, what we call CHI at the Arthur Ashe Institute, it's community outreach. It's trying to bring education, health education to the community.
The name of my barbershop is Nelson's Barbershop on Parkside Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. There definitely is a sense of community, a certain amount of trust that goes on in the barbershop, in most barbershops.
You gotta be real cool with the barber too, and he gotta know you.
The Arthur Ashe Institute for Urban Health comes on Saturdays, and they educate some of the clients in here on smoking, the dangers of it, and prostate cancer.
I think that when we're teaching health issues, we have to go to places where the health issues are at.
We want people to understand that these are the conditions affecting us, our people, and these are the things that you can do about it.
As the conversation starts, it'll draw them into it.
Can I just enlighten your mind about something that will keep you living longer?
And there are real topics that are serious. So, it engages them.
And then they're able to, say, yeah, this makes sense.
It's hard to measure success rate, but I think for me and for most of us at the Institute, what we look for is the response we get back from the community.
When you die, you won't have to have your haircut done anymore, but while you're living, you're gonna have to have your haircut. So if you can come in every time and get a little bit of information about your health, I think that it'll make a difference.
It's about empowerment. It's about giving people the knowledge and skills they need to improve their own health conditions.
And I think this is wonderful that the Nelson Barbershop here has opened their doors to the Arthur Ashe Urban Health Institute to come into their life, in a sense, to give life, because that's what Arthur Ashe did, and that's what he would want. I think that that's so important, and we don't teach that in medical school. And so sometimes I think people are chosen for medical school on the basis of marks in science, but they should get a mark in ethics and their ability to be an advocate.
I gotta help people, whatever it takes.
I met Rocky Robinson when he started his ambulance car, and he was on a trailer.
I believe in putting the help where the hurt is. And if he's a drug addict, if he's an alcoholic, they have a lifestyle that I don't agree with, I gotta try to help them and show them the way.
People in the community just could not respect them to say, this is an ambulance call, with all this broken down ambulance and looking like this and so forth. And they would shoot through the windows and do a lot of things to destroy that one little trailer that they had, but they withstood that.
If there was no trailer here, I'd be in my car. If there's gonna be another 911, who's gonna help the community?
He gave up a lot to go in and do what he had to do, but he was a positive EMS person.
I got people that started with me 18 years ago that are doctors from this raggedy little trailer that everybody don't even pay any mind.
Dr. Diaz is very insightful about the effects of environment, of economics, and of society on the health of people.
When I was interning at Downstate Medical Center in 1962, you could go into the obstetrics clinic and you'd see a person reaching into a brown paper bag, eating some white material, not realizing that they were getting anemic from this. The white material was Argo laundry starch. The starch will steal the iron from your body, so it became very anemic. We went and showed in the grocery stores where the Argo starch was at. It was not in the laundry area, it was in the confectionery area, like cookies and crackers and things like that. And so you would ask the average store owner, what do people do with this starch? And they would tell you, they eat it. Like it was, didn't you know they ate it? And it was in the journals, the medical journals, that people ate this, but nobody did anything about it. So I thought I would go for the jugular of the Argo Starch Company and have a class action suit. Consequently, we stopped the whole process. We got a statement on the box, not recommended for food use, which was very vividly, not little small print, and then we got it made into a powder.
Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, as by the obstacles which he has overcome while trying to succeed. Booker T. Washington.
When you struggle to get into these fields where there are very, very few visible images, you are contributing to the very core of what it means to be an African. And what it means to be the best kind of human being that we can be.
I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, where a young black man was more inclined to be in jail or dead than in college. But from 1958, there's obvious differences. I mean, we've never had to walk through any sort of, picket line about our presence. I've never had to walk through, people screaming at me that I shouldn't be there. Right. And so as you mentioned, things have gotten more subtle. But in the same token, major similarities are that I'm still considered outside the norm.
This legacy of racism has become a lot more polite, a lot more couched away, but it's still there.
These are slave shackles. These are slave shackles. Yeah? I always carry my shackles with me to their graduations, and I always take out the shackles and I take out the stethoscope. And I tell them, this is the journey you're going to have to take. You have to go from here to here. Then I put the stethoscope down and I put the shackles on my head. And I tell them, if you have shackles on your brain, that's worse than any shackles you could have on your arms or legs. They'd never forget it.
I think all of this adversity, in fact, and it really only fuels your drive.
When a person of color enters medical school, there are unique obstacles that are going to be in front of them. Part of it has to do with affirmative action and people's perception of what it meant that there is, if you're a person of color, did you get in because you were, some quota?
Our students, even the most talented of our students, spend the first year or year and a half of college trying to see how they get caught up with the other students.
If you need help, the idea that you have to ask for help becomes a challenge to your self-esteem potentially.
And suddenly, there is an adjustment period. There's an adjustment period that has to occur both socially and academically.
And of course, the road is going to get difficult. You're going to receive opposition, adversity, maybe in the form of racism. Okay, you're going to have some academic struggles, things of this nature, maybe financial problems.
As a person of color, you can often feel isolated. And that's something that I felt coming into medical school, and I had to surround myself with a network of friends.
Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. Ecclesiastes.
Sometimes we don't have all the support system that we need. So you need outside support systems.
There are a number of us that have a commitment to ensure that qualified African American students are going to continue to have a place on this campus.
I was a part of a group called the Daniel Hill Williams Society, and it was a network of students, predominantly African American and Latino, who got together to study, to hang out. We were friends.
Having an organization where it flowed so naturally that you didn't even ask for help. They came to you and said, hey, let's do this, let's study together.
When you're feeling down and when you think you can't do it, and when you look in the mirror and you say, I was right, there's nothing special about me. You need to have a group that's gonna, wake you up, shake you up and say, no, look at what you've done and think about what you can do.
And that was a huge part of what we knew Daniel Hill Williams provided to its members and to anyone who asked.
You need to find people out there who are gonna support you. I was blessed to have Dr. Deese, and I'm still blessed to have him in my life as someone who I can turn to and just run into and say, hey, Dr. Deese, I want to talk with you.
That's why it's so beautiful that we do have forums like this where we can come together and share and build and try to, give inspiration to others, just as we've received from Dr. Deese and, of course, other influential people in each one of our lives.
As a matter of fact, I ran into Dr. Deese 2 days ago. I want to learn how to motivate people. I said, I'm an internist at Cornell, but I really want to do more public health work like you. And he said, oh, give me a call. So he took me into his office and he gave me his card. And that's Dr. Deese. This is 10 years later. He's still doing the same things. And he's still inspiring me.
We are a spiritual people, and I think that because we are, the church certainly has a significant influence in behavior, in influences, in a place where people gather, in a place where people come to share all that is good and bad.
This becomes a God-filled place with all the people packed in here and all the people you know for years, and a right hand of fellowship and all the different things that makes life worthwhile.
Our partnership, even as physicians, has to be with all the other institutions that are trying to ease the ill that we see in our communities, and certainly the church is high on the list.
Religion played a very major part in our lives because it really took a lot of faith to go over so many mountains. Luckily, I had a wonderful wife.
I think both of us are mutually lucky that we found each other. We've been married 50 years, yeah.
Got married the coldest day of the year was icicles on the trees.
50 years. It doesn't seem that long, but...
My wife, Beverly, has been with me all the way through all of this.
I think it's critical. I think you have to have family support. You have to have also a spousal support between the two of you.
I had to go to a lot of dinners. She paid her dues, really.
We have 3 children. They're all very caring people. They do for others. I have 2 lovely grands, Noor and Jabriya.
Well, I had patients that celebrated their 75th anniversary.
Wow, 25 to go. I don't know whether I'll make it.
There's not one thing personally I could have accomplished without her.
Jerry is a very caring person, and he's really taught me to care for people, especially working in the office with him. And I feel blessed to be his wife.
Champions aren't made in gyms. Champions are made from something they have deep inside them. They have to have the skill and the will. but the will must be stronger than the skill. Muhammad Ali.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Dr. Dees was so inspiring because he was both a humanitarian and a physician, and he showed me that it really took both.
I developed a whole program where I would give kids a poem called Hip Hop to Hip Hope. And the E, I said if they could give me the longest list of words starting with the letter E that's uplifting and positive. That was the concept of hip hop to hip hope.
Especially for you, life can be an interesting journey. Everlasting, exciting, and sometimes enjoyable. And amazing, extraordinary.
When I was in school, I didn't think I was smart enough. I always had to be told that I could do it.
I would always kind of wanted to be a physician in the back of my head, but I'll be honest, I was scared of the responsibility and all the hard work.
Sure. Shackles on the brain.
The first thing that I had to do was believe in myself. I had to stop telling myself no.
I realized that, Ike, you can do this science. You have the brain for it. Right. You love music too, but you can also do science.
Have to get rid of the shackles.
When I come back in on rounds, when it's me and 20 other doctors, they all go, I know Dr. Neighbors, and I know what they're saying. I know what they're really saying is that I know me, like I know myself.
It's about trying to make a difference in the lives of folks that are entrusting you at a time when they're not able to take care of themselves.
There's very few other professions where your job is to help.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine.
If you don't have the model of a person of African ancestry who can tell you it's possible, you can do it, there's help out there. That's what's important.
I had to stop seeing myself as just a black girl. And I actually had to start seeing myself as a physician.
Once you make the decision it's for you, it will happen.
Work that brain and, people need you.
This kind of talent needs to be shared with the world.
If you look in the mirror and you see a doctor, then you will achieve your dreams.
Hey, we stand here as proof that it is possible.
It's time to take the shackles off the brain. You see?
Now that I'm a doctor, I can tell you that it's worth it. It wasn't easy.
Because I've been there, I've been through it, but look at me now, I'm still striving for excellence.
Dr. Dees is really like a role model to me, continues to be.
When you look at someone like Dr. Dees, who just upholds all the values of integrity, goodwill, and brotherhood, inspiration, follows.
His ability to inspire was something that no one forgets.
He had a very keen sense of the health of the community.
And I think that calling from the community is something that we both experienced, but I think Dr. Dees, he always had that, he always heard the call louder.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine,
Even though you may encounter obstacles on your way, never give up.
I have long should have been retired, personally. But there's nobody to take my place, in a sense, when I say that. And that's really hard when you think about it because the obligations are strong there. I mean, most of my friends, I had a friend of mine the other day said, I've been to China 4 times. I haven't even been to Chinatown 4 times. What I'm trying to say is that going to China 4 times won't make me a better person than to have spent that same amount of time and money on some youngsters.
As you can see, Dr. Dees is an inspiration for us all. I hope his ideas have inspired you to join the many educators, health professionals, and students of color that are helping to improve the health and educational needs in underserved communities. I also hope ideas restores your faith in the ability of a collective people to make a difference in the lives of others. And most of all, as Arthur Ashe would have wished, I hope this film inspires you to become a compassionate health professional, joining Dr. Dees on his quest for health for all.